Well, we have already created part of our infrastructure. In this case, the VPCs, subnets and internet gateways. Now, let's create the EC2 instances, the target group that will contain the network appliance and the gateway load balancer. Well, let's start creating the EC2 instances. In this case, I will need 4. 1 for the application server, 1 for the network appliance, and the last 2 will be the Bastion hosts, one of which will be used to log into the application server and 1 to log into the network appliance, which will perform the traffic inspection. Then, from the EC2 dashboard, I will create the first instance, and it will be called Application Server. For the ONI, I will use Amazon Linux. We just need to log into the instance and generate some traffic, so Linux is an excellent choice. Below, I'll use the 2 micro as the instance type. I'll select a couple of keys. In the network configuration section, I will edit this. I select the application VPC. The subnet will be Application Server Subnet. We'll make sure to enable the automatically assigned public IP so that the application server will receive a public IP address. Next, we will create a security group that will allow all incoming traffic and reuse it with other instances. This is just to keep the configuration simple. In a production network, you will want to enforce your security groups. So, I'll give it a name like Allow All Traffic. I'll copy the name into the description. According to the incoming security group roles, I'll set the type as all traffic from anywhere, and then create the instance. We will repeat the steps to create the other instance. This will be Application Bastion. I will continue using this same ONI. Same instance type. Select the key pair. Next, I will edit the network configuration. I select the application VPC. The subnet will be Application Bastion Subnet. Also, make sure to enable the automatically assigned public IP because we need a public IP address to log into the Bastion host. I will use the newly created security group and create the instance. So, I already have both the application server and the Bastion host. Now, we need to do the same for the network appliance and the security Bastion. So, I will create such an instance and call it Network Appliance. Normally, I would use a real network appliance for inspection, but it requires a license or subscription. So, we'll use an EC2 instance as the network appliance. We'll use the same ONI again. Same instance type, same key pair. This time, we'll configure the VPC as Security VPC, and make sure the subnet is the inspection subnet. This is the subnet that will contain the network appliance for inspection purposes. Next, the network appliance does not need a public IP address because it will receive traffic from the gateway load balancer. Also, we will need to recreate the security group because the one we created previously was in the application VPC. It cannot be used in this VPC, so we will need to create the security group again. Therefore, we will call it the same, Allow All Traffic. I'll copy and paste the name in the description and change the incoming rule type to All Traffic and set it anywhere. And I create the instance. And finally, we'll repeat the same steps for this instance, which will be the security Bastion. Same Amazon Linux ONI. The instance type is T2 micro. The key pair remains the same. We change the network configuration and choose Security VPC again. And the subnet, it will be Security Bastion Subnet. This EC2 instance will need a public IP address because it is a Bastion host. So, we will need to log in from the internet. We will reuse the security group and I will create that instance. So, Going back to the instances, we see that we have created all the required EC2 instances, the application server, the application bastion, the network appliance, and the security bastion. Now, it is time to create the target group and add the network appliance to it. So, we go to target groups, create. For the target type, we'll use instances because we'll add an EC2 instance to it. We'll provide a name like inspection TG. For the protocol, I'll choose Geneve, and we see that it auto-populates the port number, which is 6081. Now, since the target group will contain the network appliance, we must choose the VPC named Security VPC. For the health check protocol, we will use TCP, and in the advanced configuration, we will override the health check port and set it to TCP port 22. This is because we are using Linux instances. They will have port 22 open for SSH purposes, so we will use that to perform the health checks as well. So, everything else we leave it like this and continue. Here, we select the network appliance, add it, and create the target group. Once created, the only thing left to do is to create the gateway load balancer. So, we go to Load Balancer, Create, and Gateway Load Balancer, Create. I will give it a name like GWLB. For the IP address type, we will use IPv4. For the VPC, we'll select Security VPC because that's where we want to create the Gateway Load Balancer. And for the assignments, we will use the single availability zone that we are working with. We select GOB subnet as the correct subnet because this is where the Gateway Load Balancer will be hosted. In the next section, which is the IP listener routing, we select the destination group, check that everything is okay, and create the Gateway Load Balancer. Once this is done, we must wait for it to finish provisioning. With this, we finish this class, and we will see you in the next one where we will configure all the routing aspects. See you next time.